Welcome back to another episode of the Acastus Night Asterius. I'm Bri the Builder, and in this episode, I am going to be, and I know I said at the end of the last episode that I would be finishing the LEDs in the carapace. Once I actually started doing that, I got my LEDs set up and figured out what was going on. I realized I would actually need to prime the carapace parts that were going to be receiving the LEDs and the fiber optics before I could actually install them. So I primed those parts, and I don't really want to wait a couple days to make sure that the primer's all fully cured before I manhandle all the parts. So while that's curing, it's all primed, looks great. While that's curing and sitting, I might as well go ahead and actually rebuild the Gatling gun. I need to, and I will actually put a link to Watcorp Designs. It's watcorpdesigns.com, WATCORP Designs. These are 3D printed, I would imagine, to begin with, and then maybe possibly resin cast. I'm not sure. They could still be just resin printed. They have a little bit of a waxy feel to them. I'm not sure. I don't have a ton of experience with 3D printed parts, so I'm not really sure. I believe they're probably resin printed. And I think those are probably just right, the little support spots. That's my guess. They look like it. They're really nice quality, really great detail. So once these are basically figured out, well, okay, I think they're figured out. I've also got some 3D printed parts back here from a friend of mine, and this is the elbow piece that goes with that. Will get magneted basically to here and then to the elbow piece there, which then fits into the knight's elbow joint. So magnets everywhere, and we'll have swappable weapons. So the idea here is that I need to replace this piece. It's just not going to work because I need LEDs to come through, and that's not hollow. So I'm going to make my life a little bit easier, and I'm going to remove and keep both the center section here and the end section. So I'll have to drill those out to make room for my styrene tubing. But I've got 5/32 tubing for the barrels and 3/16 for the center. Now the center is also going to kind of be built into these two pieces, so that'll help. And I'll space them out a little bit differently. But then once this all goes together, I just need to drill a hole through here, opposite of where that little marker is, because that little marker is the bottom center. So I'll put a mark and drill a hole top center so I can have an LED that will essentially shine through. I think this goes this way. It'll end up sitting on there. Alright, so those two pieces will go together. And then this goes on this way. Come on. Once it's all glued up, it'll help. But I can't glue these two halves together until the elbow joint is all set up. So temporarily at least, that'll go there. Now I can't hold it together. Then this sits in front. So the whole body of this is hollow. So it'll make it really easy to run the LEDs or the wiring through. Then it'll basically just sit behind an opening that I have cut here, drilled here. And then when the barrel turns, right, the top one, as it passes the LED, will illuminate, which is how a Gatling gun actually works. So it also saves me from needing multiple LEDs that are turned on and off in succession. That actually, it's not the right way, and it's harder to set up. So, well, if I didn't have this already set up for me. So now what I'm going to do, basically, we'll start our time lapse going, and I'm just going to cut this apart and basically rebuild it with other styrene tubing. And hopefully I don't hurt myself in the process, right? No cut off fingers anymore. All right, so here we go. Always always want to cut off the smallest piece first. That way you have things to keep holding on to, right? If I cut off the biggest one first, it makes it so I have a lot less places to hold. So, and then, well, maybe, I'm not sure. I think I can probably cut these off individually. We'll see. All right, a little magnification helps. And there's one more of them on the desk somewhere. I heard it tink somewhere, so it'll be recoverable. And I may be able to use these drilled out a little bit more to kind of cover the ends of my styrene tubing. It should look better than just end. And I won't have to carve anything new. Alright, so I'm going to come back after I do this so I can hold on to it a little bit easier. It's getting hard on my hand. I'm going to hold it against the desk and it's going to shake the camera like crazy. So I'll come back after I make these 1, 2, 3 more cuts to separate these 2 rings from the barrels. All right, so obviously the pieces have been cut apart. I ended up needing to use a coping saw to do that. So not necessarily as fine or nice of a cut, but I got through this just fine. This the little shiny spot is where it ended up breaking. So, right, that last little piece that snapped off, but that'll sign down just fine. So now I'm going to start drilling out the pieces so that as I glue it together, I'll know exactly where to glue everything. But to start with, right, so this doesn't have any keys. So this one being up near the end, having the little barrel ends in it, actually has some nice spots to allow me to just drill. So I'm going to basically just drill these two guys out and then start assembling the barrels, the tubes. So I also straightened out as much as I could this blade again, so it's definitely not straight, but it should be good for cutting the tubing, and should be a flat enough cut to be able to glue everything up real nice. the holes line up, which is really nice. So when the barrel spins, light will actually make it through. It's really hard to hold. I have them perfect, and they're not perfect, but they're pretty good. That one needs to be out just a hair further, but light's definitely going to pass through without a problem. So once there's an LED sitting behind there and this thing's spinning, it should work great. Now, unfortunately, I think, I'm just going to end up with some pieces of styrene on the end. Maybe shorter, right, obviously, than this. But I don't know if I'll end up using those caps. We'll see. Alright, so now the next step is going to be figuring out exactly. I think really it's going to make the most sense to just cut my pieces pretty much to the same size of what they used to be, because size-wise it is correct for this. I won't lose any of those just in case. Not sure, but I think that on there. I mean, you need something to make up a little bit of space to get out to each of the barrel thicknesses. My hope is that this 1.5 millimeter square rod hopefully will be the right size to make up that gap. So we're going to try that. So I'm just going to cut 6 of those to go around the edge. Alright, so there's my 6 barrels and my center. Alright, now these pieces can all go together with Tamiya Extra Fine, no problem, right? This is great cement for this kind of stuff. Once this assembly is together, it'll actually have to be super glued to these parts because these are not styrene plastic, right? They're resin. So we use super glue on those. That is not a piece we're using. Alright, so the easy part at first, at least, is going to be that these just need to run along a straight side of this. Right? So try to get them straight. It should be good. once it's all glued together, that's going to be very cool. All right, now we do need to let these pieces set up a bit before we really start actually attaching them and sanding them and getting them all nice and smooth before we attach them. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and drill a hole where I believe we should line up pretty well. Let's see. Barrel. Center 5, just over 5 millimeters to the outer edge. All right, let's hope that's accurate. Now we're going to go on the edge opposite this. This little tab is for a piece that goes on the bottom, and we want our barrel on the top. So I think that looks pretty good. Now my 5 millimeters, slightly over 5 millimeters from the edge. Should put it just below that layer line. Right there. Double check before we put the pin. Yep, that should be right where we want it. Spin around. They line up really nicely. The problem that I have to come up with a solution for is I need a light block back at the very base, so as it spins around I don't see the LED between the barrels as they spin. Which this is nice, right? It's going to be up above and it'll help make a light block. But it's not enough for down at the very base. Now, I'm not going to trim off a piece of that because even that's not quite enough. So I maybe, with a very small amount of epoxy sculpt, will actually build a little bit of an interior rim. That's actually the way to go. We're going to do that. Now, chances are that's not set up enough for me to do this right now, but we're going to do it anyway. just a little bigger. And there's no way I'm going to use all this. Alright, that should be good. Now, once this is nice and soft, you should be able to get it between all the barrels right down at the base. And it's only going to be down at the base, which will then end up being hidden inside of this. So you really never see it down there. So I like the look of the open barrel. I think that looks really cool. So as I'm just tearing this and tearing it and tearing it and folding it back together, should end up with a very nice, even distribution of the two parts. And if you make a marble out of it, right, ball it up, you can usually see the striation. And if there's any noticeable striation, you need to keep tearing it up and pasting it back together to get rid of any of that striation. It should be incredibly minimal and not noticeable. Right, once the two parts are evenly mixed, if they're not very well mixed, you'll see noticeable dark light striping. Alright, that's good. Now, alright, so between that flat end and that really pointy end, that should be more than enough shaping. Let's close up the glue. All right, a little bit of water. I need a piece of paper towel. test. Hopefully it fits. Should be nice, complete light block. That's spinning. Alright, that should be perfect. Alright, now we definitely need to let these sit for a bit. Before we finish up that assembly. Alright, so all of these pieces have set up long enough that I was able to do some sanding and get everything pretty smooth. Now this thing's not perfectly round, and I did test it out. I got a little tiny piece of that center almost as a washer. Actually as a washer. I also drilled out for the LED. So I have a nice LED that I filed flat that sits in there, and it sits below there almost perfectly flush, which made it so the washer in there keeps it so that spins still very nicely. All of these pieces should be able to be lined up and glued together now. And to line them up, the easiest thing I could come up with was just putting in toothpicks. So if I just run toothpicks through all of the holes, it may not necessarily be in a spot when one all the way through where I can glue all the way around, but I should definitely still be able to get enough super glue around all of the pieces that I'll be able to pull out the toothpicks and then finish super gluing everything. So why that one really wants to be alright, still lined up. Just want to make sure everything's touching as much as possible. Let's see any noticeable gaps. Okay. I guess that was plan A, so move on to plan B then. Clean that back out. Let's keep that in there. Alright, so 3D printed elbow. That still fits in here beautifully. Elbow piece here could have been just a little wider, but it will glue, no problem. So we'll get it centered, glued in. Alright, for now, let's just make sure it's all the way on one side so we don't lose it. Alright, now we're going to get these lined up pretty accurately and pretty quickly. Now this one's not glued, so it can sit in there. It's not tight enough that it's not going to be free. It'll have to be glued, just not yet. No, I'm not sure. Well, let's just glue this on. Alright, so that's... It won't be much to drill through, but I'm going to have to drill through the top edge a little to make room for the LED. but I think actually make my life easier. Well, no, it won't. Can't drill that in first. Well, it's pretty hard to tell there, but it looks like still gonna have to take some more of this right back here. Which, I mean, if that's all that's in the way, it might not really be in the way. There's definitely space. Okay. Feel more comfortable. Alright, so now so this guy's not glued in, but I think it's pretty even. I do want it sticking out slightly, and then once it's set, Pretty sure kept the glue out of the pinholes. Alright, that should be good. Now what I started to say is afterward I'll build up a little bit of epoxy sculpt around there and kind of look like it's made to be there. And then the two halves of that symbol will be painted a subtly different shade red and black to help the understanding of which side is red and which side is black when you go to plug the other side in. So now, these I can just wire together. At some point before I close this all up, I think, have to solder these. I definitely don't want anything potentially coming apart. Because this one's not going to be made to be a replaceable LED. When this one's done, it's going to be done. For now, actually, let's just grab the battery. I don't know if we'll be able to see this well, but with just a battery in here. It is a nice bright LED, right? So that's cool. It's coming through there great. That on there. As the barrel rotates, I'm trying to get the view here. As the barrel rotates, you should get the view as it goes past. So that will be quite cool. Alright, so I'm gonna figure out first, I guess we're gonna have to be done with this guy for now. That actually is looking great. I'm gonna have to take a little break. And I think I'm going to glue the tips back on and then glue this on. But for now, I think this guy's in a great spot. This is going to be a very, very cool weapon hanging off the side of his body. Alright, nice big elbow joint. I'll get that glued. Once I figure out the exact angle of everything, that'll glue in real nice. It's a cool weapon. Like I said before, I will put the link to the exact weapon from Watcorp Design. I'll put it in the description. It's like the Acastus, or it's a night chain gun. So it's going to be great. LED bolts will be all painted up. I don't think you'll get any light leak, maybe a little back into the chamber back here. But if you do, it'll actually look really cool. You never know though, once the thing's all painted, you may not really notice any of that light leak. So this is going to be there. Just lost the washer again. So there it is. No, I don't think I need to glue that in, because once this is all set, it's not going to be able to come out. And if it's not attached on either side, it should be even smoother in there forever. Alright, but that spins pretty nice. All right, LED works. Weapon 90% done. All right, just got to basically do a couple last little housekeeping parts. Pretty happy with the way the barrel turned out. There's nothing about it is perfect, but everything about it is pretty damn cool. So again, once it's painted, I think it'll look great. All right, so in the next one, maybe we'll be able to get back to the LEDs in the carapace, or maybe we'll just basically, well, yeah, I think in the next video that make the most sense. The carapace, I think I can touch it now. The carapace looks gorgeous, right? That nice dark gray, all those details pop out really good. The interior looks good. So I should be able to get the LEDs going in there. I'll get that piece basically finished up for now. And the head looks great. So we'll be able to get the fiber optics and everything set up in that guy and run into the body. Or maybe I'll paint this. I don't know. One or the other. Either we'll be working on some more LEDs or we'll be doing some painting in the next one. We'll see. It'll be a surprise. We'll figure it out when we get there. All right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.